Hello everyone, Yair Spitz here from the road on the way back up north after being on leave for a couple of days. So this is my third time coming back home since the beginning of the war. And what I found is that with each time that I come home, I find it to be a little bit easier to transition and back home and to try to go back to my regular routines, at least for those couple of days. So this time around, already the first night, I was able to go to sleep at a decent hour, get a good night's sleep, wake up at the crack of dawn, and do my routine. Learn a little bit, daven, pray, and wake up my boys. Spend time for them to get ready for school. See them off before they left. And have my chavruta, which my chavruta and I, we haven't had a chance to learn since the beginning of the war, so we finally were able to pick up some of our learning, which I'll talk about a little bit more soon. And then see my daughter off to school, sit down and have breakfast with my wife. And then I found that throughout the day, I found myself eager to do kind of just do things around the house, do dishes, sweep, like I usually did, or used to, do things around the house that have been neglected because I've been away. So switch a leaky faucet, install the sound system for my son who got a system for his bar mitzvah and has been waiting to be hooked up. Later in the day, when the kids come back home from school, just ask them how things were at school. Help one of my sons with his chumash homework, and I found myself with a lot more motivation to do all these normal things than I did in my previous visits back home. And after thinking about it a little bit, I realized that maybe there's two reasons why I was so eager to do all these normal things. So the first is obviously because it gives me a sense of normalcy, of my regular life, and reconnecting to the everyday things that are valuable to me and that are a part of who I am. But as I went through the day, I noticed there was something else, because I felt that even though all these things were familiar to me from the pre-war time, there was also something slightly different about I think all of these things. So for instance, when I doing all this stuff around the house, fixing, I always enjoyed doing it, but it gave me a much stronger sense of purpose when I did it this time. Because after spending a month feeling like I'm taking care of, that I'm representing Am Yisrael, there was something extremely satisfying of being able to focus again on my own family unit. That the big idea of Am Yisrael that I've been feeling so strongly, and I think all of us have been feeling so strongly for the last month, allowed me to see my own personal, private, quote unquote, private Am Yisrael, my own family, in a new and very valuable light. The other thing which I suddenly noticed is I'll give two examples. So I had a chance, like I mentioned, I have a chavruta, a good, very close friend of mine. So we learn in the mornings. A few mornings a week, we learn Gemara, Talmud, Masechet Avodah Zarah, which is one of the tractates of the Babylonian Talmud that discusses different things that have to do with idol worship or the relationship between Jews and non-Jews and various other topics. And so, like I said, for the last month, we haven't had a chance to learn it all. I've rarely been in touch. And this time around, I felt that I'm up to it, and I felt I would be awake on time in the morning. So I contacted him. I said, Ari, are you up for learning tomorrow morning? He immediately answered, absolutely. So he came over the following morning, the morning after I got home. And we happened to be, we had reached Yud Aleph Amud Bet, a certain page blot in the Talmud, and we start learning the sugya, the small topic, and lo and behold, to our absolute amazement, without going into too much detail, if anyone really wants, they can look it up. There's a discussion there about the relationship between Jews and non-Jews. And it brings the Talmud brings two examples and two locations, two places where Jews in ancient times would interact with non-Jews, and what type of relationship existed between the Jews and non-Jews in these two places. One of them is the city of Gaza, the ancient city of Gaza. Now, just for those who may not know, the Talmud was completed around the year 450, 480 ACE. Okay, so we're talking about, almost 2 millennia ago, 1,600 years ago. So the first location that the Talmud discusses is the relation between Jews and non-Jews in the ancient city of Gaza, and it tries to deduce on the relationship between Jews and Jews in Gaza from a different location, and that is the city of Tzor, which is located in Lebanon. And we were both sitting there. We're reading the sugya, and we're just like in absolute amazement that the sugya that we had just reached right before the war, and the first sugya that we're studying since the beginning of the war, discusses the relationship between Jews and non-Jews in Gaza and in Lebanon. So we spent some time learning the sugya and trying to relate it a little bit to the situation today, and trying to make sense of it. To some degree, I experienced something similar later on in the day when I was doing Chumash homework with my son. So they're learning the first few prakim of Sefer Shemot at the moment, and the worksheet that he got went back and forth between when Hashem tasks Moshe Rabbeinu with after at the event of the burning bush, and Hashem tasks Moshe Rabbeinu with the task of basically going back to Egypt, going and speaking to Paro about letting the Jewish people go, going to Bnei Israel, to the Jewish people, and making them believe, and assuring them that they're about to be redeemed. And there's a whole back and forth, and there's five different back and forths with Hashem tasking Moshe Rabbeinu with this task, and 5 different times basically Moshe Rabbeinu gives some kind of reason of why he feels that he can't do it, he shouldn't do it, he can't do it. And so, the worksheet was to kind of look at each one of the, what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, what was Moshe Rabbeinu's response, what Hashem responded to him, and, the whole back and forth. And, so we're just going through it, reading the psukim, helping him figure out, each stage and what changes between each stage to the next one. And that also resonated with me very much, that I'm sitting here during the war talking with my son about Hashem tasking Moshe Rabbeinu, or tasking us with a shlichut, with a task that has to do with changing the fate of Am Yisrael, of saving Am Yisrael from persecution, and going towards a new state of being. Later in the day, when I was kind of reflecting on the fact that these are the 2 sugiyot that I had learned that day with my 2 chavrutas of that day, I suddenly realized that similar to what I was feeling about my regular, everyday, tasks that I do around the house, it suddenly felt different. I think this is a choice that we need to make, or that's being offered to us, which is to what degree have the events of the last month changed us? to what degree will we allow them to change us? To what degree are we going to go about our day, even our routines, just as we did beforehand? And to what degree are we going to look at our life, our individual life? And I've been talking a lot over the last few weeks about the collective life of Am Yisrael. Once I came home, I suddenly felt how my personal life, my family life, is not going to go back to be the same. I'm not sure I can fully articulate yet in what way it will change. But not only do I have a deeper appreciation for my kids, for my wife, for my family, for my community, for my daily routine, but also an understanding that that those daily routines and those daily relationships, they really do serve as the fabric of everything else that's going on. It's hard for me to fully articulate the feeling, but the going back and forth between the front lines and back home is a tremendous power in it, and the fact that I've been able to be the fullest me in my job in the army, and then come back home and be the fullest me, those parts that are most important to me in the home. Something kind of connected the dots or into one big circle, and I feel tremendously blessed, and I hope that other people are, with everything that they've been going through, each one wherever they are in the last month, are able to reevaluate not only their perspective of geopolitics and IDF and army service and big questions, but also to reevaluate their own personal life, also to value it more, but also to try to understand what role it plays and what we're called upon to do, and how to look at things in our life in a way that connects them, really does connect them in multiple ways to the larger story of Am Yisrael. So I was on leave for longer this time than the previous two times I went out. I came home a night early, and there is a story behind it. I have a Talmud, a student of mine, who I'm extremely close to. He's more like a Talmid Chaver, a student who's also a close friend for the last 15, 16 years. He made Aliyah right after high school. Went to yeshiva for a year, which is where we initially met. Joined the army, did his mandatory army service in the engineering corps, and we've stayed very close all the years. So he got called up same time I did a month ago, the day that the war started, and we hadn't really been in touch throughout the war. He was on the border with Gaza for the majority of the time since the beginning, and therefore his phone was taken away because of security concerns. They take away the phones of anyone who's like on the border with Gaza. So we haven't really been in touch. I just knew that he was there. And a couple of weeks ago, my wife told me, she spoke to his wife, and that he's in Gaza. He's been in Gaza for a week and a half. And then suddenly this past Sunday night, I get a message from him saying, are you by any chance home? I'm out for a day, 2 days, and I would love to meet up. I have a lot I'd like to discuss with you and share with you. So I wrote to him, well, I'm coming home tomorrow. Are you still going to be around? He says, no, by then I'll be gone. So, so he said, okay, so we'll catch you next time, but there's a lot to talk about. So we hung up, and then I because I'm an officer, I'm a captain, so I have a little more flexibility than regular soldiers. So I was able to very quickly arrange that instead of leaving on Monday morning, I would leave Sunday night. So half an hour later, I'm already let off near where I have my car parked, and about 3.5, 4 hours later, I'm back home, and then first thing in the morning, early in the morning, we were able to meet up and sit down and talk for 2.5, 3 hours. So, as I said, he actually had just come out of Gaza. He was there on the front line for 8 days. A lot of things that he shared with me. Not everything is relevant, and some of it is personal. But there are a few things that I felt that I wanted to share. The first is that there are a lot of unsung heroes to this war. So there's some units that get more fame and fortune, like the Air Force, rightfully so, because of everything they're doing. But there are a lot of soldiers who are doing things that no one will ever know about, or people will know about but won't be able to understand. So, for instance, he was describing to me that none of these soldiers who are now going into Gaza, none of them would be able to step foot if it weren't for the drivers of the D9 tractors. So, D9 tractors are these massive tractors, and they're completely surrounded by, bulletproof glass and metal cages. He says, and no one, none of the infantry, or even the everything, they go first. They clear the way. They rip up the roads that have bombs underneath them. And it was amazing to see. He actually does not drive one of these, but he's right behind them. He's like, they're the first 1 or 2 vehicles, and he was 2 vehicles behind. Now, as part of the unsung heroes, so as I mentioned, he made Aliyah when he was 18, learned in yeshiva for a year, went to do his 3-year mandatory army service. He's now in his mid-30s. Since then he injured himself in one of the previous operations in the one of the previous military operations. So he has pretty serious back problems, and he could be exempt from doing the army service, but he's never asked to become exempt. And also now he came, and suddenly he has to go back to jumping in and out of vehicles and running and carrying weights on his back. And he shared with me, on the one hand, the difficulty of it, but on the other hand, how he could see how what he's doing is he's right there. He's in the thick of things, and like I said, a lot of things, a lot of experiences he wanted to share and try to process together. And so it was very meaningful to hear from him and to try to help him process some of the things that he went through. Thank God nothing happened to him, nothing happened to anyone, in his direct contact. But he saw things, and to hear how he's going right back into it was truly inspiring for me as his rabbi, as his close friend. And this point connects a little bit to something else I've been facing with some of the soldiers up north. So before I left on the Shabbat, this past Shabbat that I already shared several stories with you, there were 2 other conversations that really, really troubled me. And those were 2 different soldiers. Both of them, interestingly, very, very young, people in their early to mid-20s, single. And they both shared separately a very similar sentiment. One was a driver who was part of our battalion, and he was with us during the very first few days when we were on our original base, getting all of our equipment ready. So there was another unit that was going to be on the front lines, and one of the first ones going into Gaza, who were missing a driver. And so basically it was decided that one of the drivers from our battalion would be loaned to them, until, as long as they need him, because they were actually going to be going in, and therefore it was more vital for them, and we had more time and more resources to find additional drivers. So that was like the 2nd or 3rd day of the war, and suddenly a couple days ago he suddenly shows up again, and it turns out that the unit that he had been loaned to, they were very, very active. He was telling us it's a drone. It's a unit that operates drones. So these are all kinds of drones that are just that for information, to find the enemy, to record things that are happening, but also drones that are that actually carry weapons on them, that are involved in this, taking out the enemy, or carrying payloads, or all kinds of things. So when he came back, I started, greeted him back and asked him, "How's it going?" And I said to him, "How does he feel about being back here?" He said that he really, he missed the guys, but he's really actually very upset. He got sent back to our battalion. I said, "Why?" He says, "Because over there," he said, I said, "Well, actually," I asked him, I said, why were you sent back?" He said, "Because we were very active while we were still on the border of Gaza. But once we were actually going to go in," he says, "I don't have the qualifications to drive the vehicles the special vehicles that they have. And also there's also a lot of movement on foot. I don't have the training and the background, and therefore they found someone else instead of me, and they sent me back." So I said to him, "So why are you upset?" He said, "Well, because over there, I wanted to go in with them. And now I'm just sitting here waiting for nothing, waiting for the Hezbollah to decide if they are going to, come in full blast or not. And over there, I would really be doing something." And actually, just a few hours after that, there was one of the soldiers in the medical team. He serves as the commander of one of the armored personnel carriers, and so he was looking kind of down. So young guy, he's 23, meaning he just finished his mandatory army service 2 years ago. So he's really probably the youngest guy in the unit. And he kind of looked down, and I went up to him and I said, "Well, are you okay? Everything?" He said he's a little depressed. I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I have friends who are in Gaza right now, infantry soldiers who are actually in there, commanding soldiers and actually fighting." He says, "And I'm here and I'm not doing anything." So a few of the other soldiers heard, and they tried to say to him, "No, our presence here is important. Our presence here is serving as a deterrent for the Hezbollah, and that allows the army down south to continue doing what they're doing without fear. And of course, if God forbid something starts up here, we'll be ready." But he, you could see that he didn't. It didn't really resonate with him. And I also said similar things, but at the time I wasn't able to formulate a clear answer. And over the last couple of days being home, I've had a chance to contemplate this question quite a lot, and try to form in my own mind a good response that then I'll also be able to share. And I think I've come up with something which I think is an extremely important idea to think about and to realize. And I'll put it like this: why did the monsters from the Hamas, why wasn't it so important for them to record their atrocities? So the first answer is because they're monsters, and they want to watch it after. They want to show their people, here, look what we did. But obviously, we all know there's another point for it. They wanted to terrorize us. Now, what does that mean, to terrorize us? They want to break our spirit. They don't think, at least I don't think that they think that they will be able to actually kill all the Jews in Israel or all the Jews in the world. Of course, we know that they would like to do that, but I don't think that they're stupid enough, they're that stupid to think that they will actually be able to kill all the Jews. They want us to give up. They want to break our spirit. And that's what terror is. That's how terror works. That's how terrorizing works. When it terrorizes, which means that what is happening on the battlefield itself, the amount of people killed on each side, and who has better technology and uses it better, is a secondary question. Of course, it's important. It's one of the things that it's what's on the news all the time. That's the That's the most obvious thing, because we can see it happening, and you can hear the numbers, and you can see the weapons, and it captures our imagination. But that is a front to the real battle. And of course, this is where Hamas went wrong. They thought, and they probably still think, that they can break our spirit. Now, we of course know that is a preposterous idea. There is no people in the world that is more resilient than Am Yisrael, than the Jewish people, considering everything that we have been through throughout our history. But that is, first and foremost, this battle, this war. But this battle is a battle amongst, in a much larger war that has been going on for at least 75 years. And I think in the long term, that's also how it will be remembered. When the next Prakim of Tanakh will be written, whenever that may be, this battle will be in that. Will be there, but it will be as part of a war that has been going on for 75 years. And at the end of the day, what will win it is our resiliency, our ruach, our belief in ourselves, and how we reacted in our own thoughts and our own behavior towards these events. And this is what I plan to share with him. I said that, whether your friend is in Gaza shooting and or you are, that is not the real battle. The real battle is our perspective on what is happening. Is like I said, our resiliency, which is based on our understanding of Jewish destiny, on re-examining what we are doing here, meaning what Am Yisrael is doing in the land of Israel, why Hashem has brought us back here, why Jewish destiny has brought us back here. Each one use whatever term they're more comfortable to use. I'm saying to the degree that we are able to strengthen our own spirit, our own ruach, and connect it back to our history and with our aspirations for the future as a people in the land of Israel. To that degree, we will be more resilient now, in a month from now, in 5 years from now, and then our enemies' spirit will be broken. When they see that the terrorizing not only does not work, but it makes us more resilient, which is also expressed in our actions on the battlefield, but only also, primarily, there's many, many different places in which our resiliency can be proven, in our unity, in our mesut nefesh for each other, in chesed, in both in our daily life, but also in the degree to which we feel part of the biggest story of what's happening to Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael now, each one in whatever the way they can, and also in the way we think about the events, in the way we speak about the events, in this context. And every individual, and every school, and every shul, and every WhatsApp chat, a group that discusses, that talks about the war and what's happening, to the degree that it is that it expresses resiliency, strength, faith. To that degree, it affects everyone. How exactly, I don't know. But at the end of the day, the resiliency of a nation is not based on. It is based on many, many different things. But among other things, it's each one, their thoughts, their speech, their relationships, and I'm hoping very much that when I go back and I speak to these two soldiers and other people, this is one of the messages I hope to be pushing very, very hard the next few days, for everyone to understand that being up north, right near the border, just waiting, there's plenty that can and absolutely needs to be done. Strengthen our resiliency in the context of the bigger questions, and that will give strength to everyone. That will give strength to you. That will give strength to me. That will give strength to the soldiers who are in Gaza, who will then fight stronger, be more focused, have more siyata dishmaya. So this is the idea that I think is extremely important to keep in mind as the war continues. We don't know how long it will be, but we all play a role, and we need to think long and hard in what way we are strengthening the ruach of Am Yisrael, first and foremost within our own life and our own thoughts, and then all the people around us, and spreading the resiliency of ruach, which is based on where we came from, where we're heading. So that's the thought that I'm going back with.